What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 9 of my 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about a John Ostrander book. I've talked about John Ostrander for the last 2 days. Today is going to be my final Ostrander book that I'll be talking about this year, The Kents. This is a 12-issue mega series written by John Ostrander with art by Timothy Truman, Tom Mandrake. Once again, it seems like Mandrake and Ostrander, you can't get those two guys apart, and Michael Baer. This is a 12-issue miniseries, like I said, where Jonathan Kent finds some old diaries and journal entries and letters that were sent back and forth between some of his ancestors, and then in the framing device, he is sending these journal entries and letters to his son Clark, and then they're kind of talking about the family history a little bit. But the bulk of this book is actually about these two brothers right around the Civil War, and how they both went their separate ways, and they both became very different characters, but then they were both very crucial in American history. One of them went in a very different direction than the other one. One was a very good guy, paragon of truth and justice, a lot like Clark. He was just all around a nice guy. At any point in history, you would expect to find him doing good things. And then his brother ends up being an outlaw. And they are both very real-feeling characters. You would think, just from what I've described just now, that it would be very two-dimensional. You've got the guy who's very clean-shaven, and he's just a good person. He's always smiling. His teeth are white. He's Goofus. He's gallant. And then the other one is Goofus, reference to Highlights magazine, if you will. And he's just very shady and very mwahaha, I'm evil. It doesn't play it like that. It kind of does at first. You're thinking, okay, these two are going to go their separate ways, and it's just going to be very flat and very two-dimensional and very boring. It doesn't handle these characters like that. By the end of the book, it really makes the outlaw brother feel like a real character. He doesn't feel very flat and boring and, oh, he's just your stereotypical evil bad guy in a Western story. He feels like a real character. And you start to feel for this family, even though all of these characters are going to be dead by the time the DC Universe starts, you still feel for them, and you still feel for them whenever they experience loss and when they experience some other kind of tragedy. My biggest problem with this book is that I would have very much rather they had just taken away all the journal entries. Let me see if I can find a good example here. Okay, so on this page, you've got dialogue between these characters right here. But then you've got all these journal entries here, and that is what Clark and Jonathan Kent are reading. All of these entries here where, like, the brother, that's the shady outlaw brother, he is writing a letter to, I think, his sister. And that's what Clark and Jonathan are reading. Now, personally, I would have taken out all of those journal entries, or at least most of them, because it really slows this book down. It doesn't really add anything new to the story. You get the same story if you read the dialogue between all of these characters, and you just skip all of these journals and letters that these characters are writing back and forth to each other. It really slows down the book. It doesn't add anything. It makes it very dry in places, and it's sad to say that because this is a story that can be very gripping, but unfortunately, because of this framing device of Jonathan and Clark Kent reading these letters to each other, and also reading these letters that were addressed to their ancestors, it makes the book take a much slower path than what it really should have. This could have been a really fun, really gripping story, and I say that as someone who doesn't really like Westerns, but because of all these journal entries and these letters that are throughout the entire story, it doesn't really work very well for me. It does slow the narrative down quite a bit. There was at one time almost a sequel written. I think at one point Ostrander was wanting to do a sequel that was set during the Spanish-American War, and I don't know if the sales were just not very good on this book or if interest just wasn't there, but that never happened. But if you are wanting to read a Western in the DC Universe that is much different than your normal DC Universe Westerns that involve slightly more colorful, flamboyant characters who are not quite as grounded in realism. If you want to read something that is quite a bit more grounded in realism, but at the same time is connected to the DC Universe, then I would recommend reading The Kents. Just bear in mind, it's going to be very slow reading at times, but if you don't mind that, then I would recommend you read this. This is something that you will probably very much enjoy. So those are my thoughts on this book, and I will be talking about something something else tomorrow. I don't know what, because this is not going to be a theme week. I realized once I started doing this that trying to segment each week with a different theme was going to be way too impossible, because I don't necessarily have enough books to do a theme for each week. So tomorrow is going to be a different book that's not written by John Ostrander, and we'll find out what that is going to be tomorrow. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.